It's the NFL preview, draft preview, part 2, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and edge rushers. We may even get to tight ends a little bit. Hi, welcome to the Schatz and Tanier FTN Fantasy NFL podcast for April 17th, 2025. I am Aaron Schatz. You know me as the DVOA guy from FTN Fantasy. He is Mike Tanier. You know him from his Substack at miketanier.substack.com, the Too Deep Zone. Today we are going to go through all of my projection systems for various positions, helped along, of course, by Nathan Forrester, who does a few of the projections, and Jeremy Rosen, who helps with the Cubase, and Alec, the other professor whose last name I'm totally blanking on right now, but it is not Ovechkin, but It starts with an O.
Okay.
His name is on the Cubase article.
He's the Cubase guy?
He's the Cubase guy.
Alexandre Olbrecht.
Alex Olbrecht. Yes, thank you very much. Alex Olbrecht and Jeremy Rosen helped do Cubase, which is the quarterback projection system. And of course, we'll take your comments if you are watching live. We do this at 11 a.m., usually on Thursdays. There will be a special show next week, 11 a.m. on Friday.
Why Friday?
To go the first round of the draft, baby.
Oh.
We're finally here. Have you had enough waiting? Because I have had enough waiting.
Remember, I always bring this up. Remember, I believe it was 2013 when the draft was on like May 10th?
Oh, my God.
We nearly lost our minds.
Too late. Reminder that we are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. The NFL draft is coming, and there's no better way to get ready for the incoming rookie class than with Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy sports and the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. Underdog offers a new customer FTN special with up to 100% match bonus on your first time deposit. The Underdog app is easy to use, and best ball season has already started with the big board, the bigger board, and the biggest board, all drafting live now. Just a $10 entry, you can take part in the big board draft with a total of $2 million in prizes. Head over to Underdog. It's a 100% deposit match when you sign up with code FTN. NFL draft season is here, and who better to celebrate with than Underdog Fantasy? Let's start with the quarterbacks. So the big surprises from the Cubase this year, I think, are first, the Cubase likes these quarterbacks more than conventional wisdom does.
Interesting.
All right, the Cubase results for these quarterbacks came in sort of the middle of last year's quarterbacks rather than far below, right? I think most people believe, as much as people like Cam Ward, he would have been 7th out of last year's, he probably would have been behind last year's top 6. Some people believe he may have been like 4th or 5th last year. I think he has him about with like Jaden Daniels.
Right. Yeah, and that's surprising. I would have put him around with Bo Nix, like down in the middle of the group there. And to see him that high is relatively surprising. But, like you say in the article there, he sets touchdown records. There are things that like the base really likes. For example, the fact that he peaks in his final season and has that tremendous final year.
The other is that it likes Jackson Dart a lot. And we talked about Jackson Dart last week's show. And I know, so you're down on Jackson Dart because of something that Cubase doesn't see, which is that he had great games against bad opponents and bad games against the top opponents in the SEC.
Yeah, I'm not surprised Cubase has this high record because when I went looking through his raw stats and started breaking things down like pressure stats, play action stats, whatever, they turn out tremendously. He has great yards per attempt, adjusted yards per attempt, etc., just about every split. And then like really start watching game by game. There's this sequence of games, and it's a win over Georgia, it's a loss to LSU, and it's a loss to Florida, like kind of like the 3 of the biggest opponents on his schedule, where he's horrible. Where he's really bad. And then in his other games, including some SEC opponents like Arkansas, he's really, really good. So I think with Dart, it's how much you believe this handful of like sort of almost pro teams versus these games he had against like Wake Forest, games he had against like Georgia Southern. His bowl game against Duke Duke, a lot of the guys opted out of that game, more on offense than on defense for Duke. So, like, again, there's so many of those games in his stats that it's easy to look at it statistically and say, oh my God. But then I think a lot of us who are skeptical say when he really faced these top opponents, he really performed poorly, and extremely poorly in high pressure situations.
The going talk is that he's going to go in the first round, that somebody will trade up for him. Basically, one of the teams near the top of the second round is likely to trade into the back of the first round so that they get him before one of the other teams, the Giants, the Browns, the Saints, the Raiders.
I'm not to discredit that. The over-under is 2.5. I'd probably go with under 2.5 quarterbacks. It's certainly possible. It's not unprecedented. I can't shake the idea, though, that as we create our final mock drafts, and as it becomes increasingly obvious that you can't just put Shedeur on the Browns, that's not what they're going to do it to. The Giants are not going to draft Shedeur at 3, and so he gets down. You put him with the Saints probably at this point at 9. Then you have this problem where if you're constructing the draft and you don't have a quarterback for the Browns, a quarterback for the Giants, and you want their fans to read your mock draft, maybe you move them up and you put Dart in there. I saw Todd McShay put Milroe in there after moving Dart earlier, and I don't see that as particularly feasible. But I'm not going to discount it. It's just this: if you're thinking that this isn't Lamar Jackson, where you trade up to get Lamar Jackson because he's special, et cetera, you're kind of doing this thing to say, well, I want to control this guy for 5 years, and I'm really desperate at quarterback. Not necessarily that this is a player on that level.
As a Patriots fan, I just want to poke the Saints and convince them to trade up from 9 to 4. Everyone wants Shedeur Sanders. You want to trade up from 9 to 4. That's what you want to do.
Saints have an extra second-round pick. Saints have the Marshawn Lattimore trade. They got a 4th-round pick lying around. They're the Saints. They do wacky stuff. They throw their resources all over the creation. Go get them. Go do it.
Come on, guys.
Go get it.
So, yeah, we have Cam Ward with a 37% chance of becoming upper tier or elite.
Ooh,
31% for Sanders and 29% for Dart.
Where would Sanders rank like with last year's guys?
I think with Bo Nix.
Wow. Yeah, okay.
And then there's a drop to Milroe.
There's a big drop to Milroe. Okay.
Yeah, then there's a big drop to Milroe. Milroe's 14% upper tier or elite. Will Howard is 12.
Okay.
Tyler Show is 7. And then there's another big drop. Someone went back and looked at past Cubase articles and figured out that I think Quinn Ewers is the worst projected quarterback we've ever talked about.
He's pretty terrible. He reminds me of like Brian Greasy mixed with like a Charlie Fry. And obviously he won a bunch of games, et cetera. I don't want to pull something up for you.
He had a lot of good teammates, right? So he had a high sack to pressure ratio. He regressed significantly last year, and he has a lot of highly draftable. 2 wide receivers from Texas are going in the first 3 rounds.
Right. And there's other talent there. You're absolutely right. I pulled up passes at or behind the line of scrimmage real quick, which again, so we're talking about screen passes, which at the college level can be really big impact on your statistics. A kid from North Texas named Chandler Morris was number 1. Shedeur Sanders, number 2, 148 passes at or behind the line of scrimmage. Quinn Ewers was number 3, 138. Ewers got 825 yards from that. You've got these guys who are throwing the ball to Isaiah Bond, throwing the ball to Golden, throwing the ball to Travis Hunter, throwing the ball to these other guys, and generating a lot of yards off of that. Sanders obviously has other things he can do. Ewers, when he's not doing that, it's not a good watch. For a guy who was in the championship game, the national championship game, not a good watch. Let's put it that way.
And by the way, I'd like to just add a little note here.
Yes.
I realize everyone wants to crown Arch Manning as the number 1 pick of 2026 or 2027. I can't remember.
Who knows? NIL. Who knows?
He couldn't beat out Quinn Ewers.
Yeah.
Look,
there's one name you can put in for your mock draft of 2026 that everyone recognizes. It's Arch Manning.
Yeah.
So,
running backs. It will not shock. What's shocking is how many good ones there are. Oh my God, so many good ones. Last year there was one guy with a back cast of 40% or higher.
Really?
This year there are 9.
Gosh.
And 16 guys who come out as above average for a drafted running back. 16 guys.
Yeah.
It is not a shock that Ashton Janty is number 1.
Thank God.
It is not a shock that O'Marion Hampton is number 2.
He's really good.
I think Cam Scatabo is a little bit higher than people might think.
He's real good.
He's a real good receiver.
He's a real good receiver. He's a real tough guy. He's got some fumbling issues.
There's a guy named Ollie Gordon from Oklahoma State who comes out a lot higher than most people have him.
I don't have anything on him handy. DJ from Kansas State, DJ Kinney.
DJ Giddens comes out really good.
Yeah,
and amazing. The Ohio State guys come out a little lower than you might expect, but the difference between 3 and 9 is so small that it's not really low.
And there's a sharing the load variable, right?
Not for Backcast, it thinks it likes when you get a lot of carries. And so, yeah, these guys had to share the load with each other, and it may have hurt both of them, Judkins and Henderson.
Right. And in Henderson's case, he was kind of being used as the home run threat.
Yes. And Judkins is the ground and pound back.
The ground and pound guy, although there are some games where he only has 10, 11, 12 carries. Ohio State was in a lot of their games. They weren't blowing people away as much. And both of them can play. I like Henderson a lot better because of his home run capabilities. But Judkins a good player, too. Scatabo's a good player. Vidal's a good player. There's a kid out of Kansas. Why am I drawing a blank right now?
The Kansas State. I don't know about Kansas State is DJ Giddens.
Yes.
And Bashal Tootin comes in 14th, but he's the guy who had the great speed score for Virginia Tech.
And he's another. There's several of them who really, when you watch them, the number one problem is fumbles. And a lot of times the fumble problem is them fighting for extra yards in like a foolish way when they're, in the gang, getting gang tackled.
I think you can learn not to do that that's one of those things that's not necessarily instinctual that I think you can learn.
Right. You can, and you better, because otherwise you don't even get out of preseason.
I mean, my thought about it is there's so many backs who come out good in this that you should not reach for a back.
Right.
Like, I think it's a reason to not take Janty or Hampton high, because you're going to get a guy in the 4th round who can be 80% of what they do for much, much cheaper.
Yeah, I think Janty's in this whole other universe where I don't want to don't take him up in the Saquon level, because none of the teams up there are like really equipped for him. But like, he can be that way, way different kind of guy. After that, like you talked about like a couple of years ago, Jahmyr Gibbs. I think DJ Giddens is probably as good as Jahmyr Gibbs. I was just been watching him earlier today, and it's like you don't want to get in the middle of the first round and take this guy because he's one of like the 5 guys also receiving notice when we're having these conversations right now.
The 2 guys who I thought was surprising that they come out as under average were Trevor Etienne,
yes,
of Georgia, and Dylan Sampson of Tennessee.
Yeah, I was trying to think of him a moment ago. Really good at fighting for yardage. Another guy who had some fumble issues because of that. What was the issue in terms of? Do you have that?
I think. Hold on, let me look at the numbers. For Dylan Sampson,
he has a lot of wear and tear, as I recall.
It's I don't think his he didn't have that many carries compared to other Tennessee backs.
Okay.
He didn't have a lot of receiving.
Okay.
His 40 seems fine.
A couple of them, I know.
He could be faster for his size, certainly.
EDN is just sort of like a college all-purpose guy, and like you bring him in the 6th round, he's not really on his brother's tier. I don't think he's terrible. I think in a typical class he might be 10th or 11th, but a couple of guys, and Sampson's one of them. It is also that ultra physical style means you're taking and absorbing hit after hit after hit. Judkins does that a lot as well. Scatabo as well. Where there's a little worry, it's like your style is to slam right into that guy. Hey, it's fun. We love watching it. We do GIFs of it, etc. Be careful of whether you're going to be able to stay healthy at the NFL level.
Wide receivers, the big gap is between the top 4 and everybody else. And the main reason for that is the fact that Playmaker Score doesn't like guys who come out as seniors. Right. And we've talked about this a little bit. That may not be applicable in the future because of NIL and because of the COVID year, and then NIL in the future.
Right.
Well, I don't know if it's underrating. The other thing about Emeka Egbuka, it has Emeka Egbuka 5th.
Right.
And part of that, so there's the teammate adjustment, right? If you have a teammate who's highly drafted, who's a junior or a senior, you get an adjustment.
Right.
If you have a teammate who's probably going to be highly drafted and is a freshman, there is no adjustment. But he had to share the field last year with Jeremiah Smith, who I mistakenly called Ryan Williams on a radio show, which made me feel stupid. But I mean, there were two amazing rookie receivers last year.
Yeah.
Ryan Williams from Alabama and Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State. So
Right.
I think that we might have Egbuka. We have Egbuka fifth, right? It goes Hunter first, McMillan second, Golden third, and Luther Burden from Missouri fourth.
Right.
And then a drop to Egbuka. But I think we might have Egbuka a little low because he did have to share the field with Smith, who was really good freshman.
The problem is he's always shared the field because it was Marvin
Harrison before that. Right?
Before that, and you sort of be that other guy in the offense no matter what. It becomes a little hard to look at him and say, well, I'm going to project him to be the fifth best receiver in the league when he's the second best receiver in his team consistently, even if it's Ohio State. So I have Golden above McMillan. Above.
I know we're both worried about the same thing with McMillan, which is that we're worried that he's N'Keal Harry.
The N'Keal Harry comp, right, sitting there. And he had Kenny Britton there, too. And Britton was this guy who was always up and down in his career based on whether he was really just being used as like a pure boundary guy. He had other issues, too, as I recall. And with Burden, it's the sheer amount of penalties and weirdness that surrounded him, particularly his senior year, where he's kind of gone to diva land before he's reached the NFL. Yeah. I mean, and he had penalties on the field, and then there's like all these things where you watch him on the sidelines, and if the quarterback missed him or something like that, he's doing this on the sideline. And like, can you get coached out of that, et cetera? Yeah, it's just very much a yellow flag for a guy who hasn't done it yet.
We agree that if you make Hunter a full-time receiver, he's the best receiving prospect.
Yes. Oh, yes. And that seems to be the Browns' plan if they take him.
And the theory is that he would have a higher playmaker score if he was a full-time receiver.
Okay.
Because if he was a full-time receiver, he probably would have been an even bigger part of the Colorado offense.
That's my whole theory with him. I got into trouble with some old friends and colleagues on the internet by saying he is an actual generational athlete. He actually is a generational athlete.
Oh yeah, like if you're playing Dynasty in college football, EA Sports College Football, he is the Dynasty like historically greatest ath.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like I don't know if that makes him a historically great receiver or a historically great cornerback, but he is clearly the most historically great ath.
Ath, ATH, right. And if you say, well, at cornerback, well, what if he had focused on at cornerback? Well, then maybe he literally is Champ Bailey or something like that. Well, what if he focused at wide receiver? Then maybe he literally is, I don't have a name queued up there. But yeah, and again, if the Browns take him, it sounds like that's their plan. I don't know what other team's plan for him is. And every time he talks, he's like, you let me play both ways or I'm going to.
Yeah, that's my hope is that the Browns take him and the Giants go, we don't want 3 great edge rushers, and they pass on Abdul Carter. That's my dream.
They take Will Campbell. They take that bullet off your hands, and you get Abdul Carter for the Patriots. That's perfect.
That's what I'm hoping for. So yeah, the second level of wide receivers in playmaker is mostly guys who are coming out as seniors. Egbuka, Trey Harris from Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Jalen Knoll and Jaden Higgins from Iowa State. Isaiah Bond from Texas.
Yeah.
And then a guy who I think you wrote about today, Alec Ayomanor from Stanford.
From Stanford.
Is that the guy that you compared to JJ, said gives you JJ Arcega-Whiteside nightmares?
But I admit, tall Stanford receivers broke me. Even before J-Jaw, they broke me because there was always these guys. They don't get a lot of separation. They're tall. They tend to be like sort of high character guys going to, a engineering school, whatever. And then they come to the NFL and it's like, well, you can't get open. You're really not that fast. You're not that necessarily nifty. So I might just be very just biased in the case of Elemenor. But, I like Higgins. I like Noel. Those two had to share the burden at Iowa State.
Yes. So they get both bonuses for having to share with each other. So do the 2 Texas guys.
So the 2 Texas guys. It's funny at Iowa State, like no one else caught the ball. Like, it's not like they're spreading the ball around. It's like these 2 guys, and like it's like the Eagles offense. Number 3 has like 17 receptions or something like that. But like I would have put Jack Beck.
Yes, surprised. Here are the guys I thought were surprisingly low by playmaker: Kyle Williams from Washington State.
Yeah.
And Jack Best from TCU.
Yeah. Yeah, I like them both. Williams had drop issues. That's not in the thing.
Ben Solak loves Jack Besh. I
Yes.
actually listened to his podcast he did with Mina Kimes about offensive prospects, and he thinks Jack Besh is like amazing, like could be Cooper Kupp kind of thing.
Right. I forget who I put in as my comp there, but like I tuned in like knowing it's like, okay, there's a big storyline around this guy. He's connected to New Orleans tragedy. His brother passed away. There's a lot there. I have to be careful not to overrate him based on these like feelings that well up, and like did my best to take a very sober analysis. It's very good. It's very good. He's an outside receiver. He's not necessarily a slot guy. Don't perpetuate the stereotype, folks.
No. The other guy that he compared him to, so can we come up with a non-stereotypical comparison, was Michael Thomas.
Who again? Say again?
Michael Thomas from the Saints.
Oh gosh.
Right outside, just slants all day.
Oh gosh. Okay.
I mean,
okay.
that's a hard guy to live up to.
Right.
But that was the comparison.
That's good. No, I like the player. So I'm not sure what it didn't like about him. He has some good teammates as well, but he was getting the bulk of the passes there.
Restrepo from Miami is the other guy who was kind of low, but I think everybody sort of moved him down.
He ran like an 8-second 40 somewhere in there. He really struggled because I had him pretty high going into the process, and nothing in the process has worked his way.
The sleepers are LeJontay Wester of Colorado, who had good numbers at Florida Atlantic before last year and had to, of course, share the field with Hunter.
Yes.
And Ricky White III of UNLV.
I've got nothing on him.
Yeah. But I like him. He's going to be a later round pick.
LeJontay's a real skinny mini. He's a real skinny mini. But he made plays, very wide open system there. And so you can be like 167 pounds or whatever he is. He shared the ball not just with Hunter, but with Horn, another really good player that came in as a transfer. I forget his first name. But he would stand out on film. It's just he's like kind of a size issue guy.
Tight ends, I do a system for tight ends. It's not as sort of practiced as these other systems, so I don't write about it. But the interesting tight end result was that it now has Colston Loveland ahead of Tyler Warren.
Okay.
Which I think almost makes a little bit of sense, because everything I hear about Tyler Warren is that Tyler Warren is this crazy, interesting chess piece, whereas Colston Loveland is like, he's just going to run some routes. He's going to go out there and he runs routes and he runs a bigger route tree. And there seems to be some disagreement about whether he can block or not. But he runs a bigger route. He runs the full route tree and more of a receiving, whereas Tyler Warren is like, I'm going to do a reverse now. And I'm going to, do some wacky stuff.
I'm going to play Wildcat quarterback. We're going to run trick plays. And that is Warren's game. That did make him a tricky evaluation. I went back and looked at 2023 a little bit more when he was more conventional and felt more comfortable that at putting him tight end one. Then Loveland's a slot receiver. He is a slot receiver. I guess there is disagreement about blocking. Look, folks, Harbaugh would not have put you out there 2 years ago if you couldn't block at all. But he was putting him out there at slot receiver. There was always a tight end.
He's a Gesicki. He's more of a Mike Gesicki.
He's a Gesicki, and that's a fine comparison. He's Gesicki where he might bounce from
better Gesicki.
Yeah. Better Gesicki with his arm in a sling too right now. He's rehabbing an injury.
The other three, there's 5 tight ends who came out projected above 300 yards a year. The other 3 are Mason Taylor, Jason Taylor's son.
Mm-hmm.
Elijah Arroyo from Miami.
Everyone's Banky.
And Harold Fannin Jr., who you wrote about today, has amazing numbers. And I'm a great believer in receivers from the mid-majors, MAC especially. There are a lot of great receivers who come out of the MAC where the production has translated. But as you pointed out at 2 Deep Zone today, he totally disappeared at the Senior Bowl.
Right. It was hard watching him, just like given safety X, whoever was covering him, and his lateral movement skills were very weak, and he wasn't able to get open against those. He looked very much like just a guy, and he was overshadowed by a couple of guys there. Ferguson from Oregon looked better there. Arroyo blew him away there. You don't want to discredit it. And again, as I said, Fannin, he led the nation in receptions and yards for all receivers, not just tight ends. Had good games against Penn State, et cetera, although I think they had injuries on defense then. But, I'm comfortable with him, whatever, 5th, 6th in tight ends. That's fine. But, he seemed like somebody who could have bubbled up based on that pure
He
production.
he definitely seems like a high ceiling, low floor kind of pick to me.
Yes. Either you get someone special or you got this gadget specialist who you can't really use.
Speaking of Penn State defensive players, edge rushers, the biggest surprise about edge rushers is that Abdul Carter did not come out as historically great.
I'm not surprised.
He came out as your run-of-the-mill best edge rusher of the year.
That's how I see him. Like every year, there's like one or two great edge rushers. There's like a bust every other year somewhere among them. But like there's this guy who's going to get a dozen sacks a year. It might be,
but he's not Miles. It doesn't think he's Myles Garrett.
I don't. Yeah, that's reasonable. But like he's still really, 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 really good.
Shamar Stewart comes out second. The system has no idea what to do with this guy because I do a thing when I write this up for ESPN where I go through all the past prospects and I look for guys who had similar numbers at a similar weight. And I compare, right? Mm-hmm. And I try to compare guys who are the same, I compare primarily based on the things that go into the projection systems. But I try to compare guys that are similar body size. I don't want to compare a 190-pound receiver to a 6'4", 225 receiver, because even if they have similar yards per game, they're not really the same guy.
Right.
There's nobody like Shamar Stewart. There are guys who had very little production in college, but they're mostly guys who only started for a year in college.
Right.
They're not guys who started for 3 years.
Right.
There's one guy who started for 2 years, which is Daniil Hunter, and had very little production.
Okay.
Who's 35 pounds or something less than Shamar Stewart. So that's not really a comparison.
Right.
Shamar Stewart is 267. So there's never been a workout warrior of this size with anywhere near this little production in college. And I don't know if is he double teamed all the time or can he just not finish?
He doesn't finish. He doesn't have moves. He's a bull rusher, speed rusher, period. But there's a lot of guys like that who are like, I'm just the traits monster, and I go out there and I bull rush and speed rush. And in his case, but they usually get more sacks, especially if they've started a couple of years or more pressures. He didn't. He's very vexing because he spoke at the combine, and he was this really funny, charming, engaging guy. So it's not like, well, maybe this dude's just like a tunnel vision dude who doesn't really know what he's doing out there. Like, no, he's got his act together. When they ask him about his sack production, he's like, well, I wasn't out there just to be a sack king. I was out there to help my team. And it's like, yeah, dude, but it's 3rd and 10.
He'll bring the run defense at that size. Hell yeah. I got to think, because I'm a little wary of the lack of production, if I had the second, I needed an edge rusher and I was picking the second edge rusher, I think I'd go with Mike Green. That's who we have third in sacks here. Although, obviously, you need to figure out what the off-field deal is with him.
Yes. And that is a question mark at this point.
For those who don't know, he sort of copped to being accused of sexual assault before it could get into the press. Like, he admitted to it himself first.
Yes.
It's interesting story.
2 isolated cases. Isaiah Bond also has something out. I've looked at that. Based on tea leaves, that's not going to be something that impacts his career, just leaving it there. Green, it's not as certain. Green's tape is phenomenal. Green's Senior Bowl was phenomenal. He disappeared after like 45 minutes. So, I did enough here and left. And by the way, if you want that pure edge, that's the guy. Now, if you're picking late in the first round, late in the first round, it's like we have a system guy where we want this big, rocked-up defensive end. The Lions are a bad example because Shamar Stewart won't be there for the Lions, but it's like we want the anvil for Hutchinson's hammer, that kind of thing. Then you could grab a Stewart. A team that might use more of the odd front, might use more of the 2 gaps, could use a Stewart along the way. But I had Stewart 12th, but that was just sort of like 12th. You got
not 12th among edge rushers. You mean 12th?
Oh, no. 12th among players.
Among players, right.
Among humans, yes.
The other guy, by the way, who's sort of an edge rusher who will go that high, but he's lower in sacks here because he's a weird tweener player, is Jalen Walker from Georgia.
Yes.
So I think people don't know if they want to use him as an off-ball linebacker. Do they want to use him as an edge rusher? Is he an off-ball linebacker who just happens to rush the passer more than someone compared him to Frankie Louvu like that?
Right. Yeah, Yeah, he is like sort of like I played middle linebacker, but I blitzed like almost all the time, or I was shooting a gap every time. You don't see that guy where you're going to put him in and give him a lateral role. Not many teams use linebackers like that. I have a funny feeling he's being projected as an edge.
So Carter, Stewart, Green, Donovan Ezeraku
Local guy.
from I'm a local to me, Boston College. Local to
us. He's a South Jersey lad as well.
South Jersey lad, Boston College. Local to both of us.
Yes.
Michael Williams from Georgia, who comes out as a little bit of a bust candidate, but that could be the ankle injury. The ankle injury made his production. He only had 14 sacks over 3 seasons, but the ankle injury could be a big part of that. So I definitely understand why I think he's a high risk, high reward kind of guy.
Agreed.
James Pierce Jr.
He can fly.
Then Jordan Birch from Oregon.
Big dude.
Another big guy, 279.
Yeah,
for an edge,
right?
That's a Leo, right? That's the old.
The Red Bryant. I think his name was. Yeah, and yeah, he's like speed, power, and nothing else. Again, but when you get up to 280, it's like, well, what do you expect? He'd be a top 5 pick if he had spin moves and stuff like that.
And then Walker comes out after him, and then Landon Jackson from Arkansas, and then the sleeper, Saxier's favorite sleeper, David Walker of Central Arkansas.
From the rice and duck capital of the world. I wrote about him weeks ago and I had a long conversation about how he is from the rice and duck capital of the world. He explained to me what rice and duck was. The duck is the bird and the rice is the food.
The history of guys from lower schools and even Division II who have a lot of production in college is a good history.
Yes.
Jared Allen.
Yes.
Mathis. Robert Mathis from the Colts.
Yes.
Jalix Hunt.
Yeah.
He's a big sleeper and had a sack in the Super Bowl for the Eagles. So it really likes David Walker from Central Arkansas. The 2 guys that I think are lower in sacks here, especially the second one here, much lower than you have them.
Okay.
Are Princely Umanmielen.
Okay.
Who, by the way, if you don't read Too Deep Zone, first of all, what's wrong with you? Second of all, you need to read the stories about Princely Umanmielen and his family and how they're all named Prince something, and which is hilarious.
It was amazing.
But his sacks here is pretty low. And then even lower than that is Ahmed Hassanain from Boise State.
See, I like him.
Yeah, he really is low in sacks. He has no passes defensed in college. Only 9.5 sacks as a senior, which for a senior edge rusher prospect is not impressive.
Right.
It really has him really low. And then I think you wrote him up. Did you write him up? Was he today?
He might have been today or yesterday. Yeah. And again, like the background story for him is that he was in Egypt. He was born in the U.S., moved to Egypt with his family until I forget what age. But he's one of these I took up football late guys. So what you're seeing sort of out there is the go get ball.
There's only 2 years. He really only had 2 years, junior and senior. You didn't really have play freshman or sophomore year.
Right. So it's kind of like a projectable traits type of guy. So I guess I'm not too surprised. You're not going to have a guy drop into coverage if he doesn't know football and you just told him, go get that guy over there who has the football, go kill him.
Right. Although the PDs thing is less about dropping into coverage and more about swatting passes down.
Too. Right. Umanmielen, he's on this ridiculous Ole Miss defensive line with Nolan, with Pegues, with Ivy, with underclassman who's amazing, who I'm not going to be pulling his name out right now for Ole Miss. And yeah, I don't know. I might have projected him too high personally because there's so many situations where he's like isolated on the tight end. He's isolated one-on-one. The pocket is foobar, and he picks up the play. Still like what I saw of him, like what I saw against LSU, for example, where I know he's facing top tackles and he's getting home a few times.
All right, circling back to Will Campbell discussion, right?
Yeah, yes. Oh, he's good. He's fine. He's really good.
He's fine. He's fine.
He's fine. 3-time All-American.
Not what you want with the number 4, or by the way, if you're the Giants, the number 3 pick. You don't want a guy who we're like, he's fine.
And just to, I know we're wrapping up here, but it's like I'm realizing now I probably get a little carried away in being skeptical about him because I'm always seeing him against Ole Miss. I'm always seeing him against Georgia.
Yeah.
So it's Michael Williams on the other side. It's Princely on the other side.
He just seems to me much more like a guy who should go 20th.
20, yeah.
Solid, but not necessarily all pro left tackle.
Right. The
That's not
cornerstone.
where you want to take fourth. Fourth, you need more upside at fourth.
Yeah, the cornerstone of your draft.
Again, circling back to the Giants.
The cornerstone of the
draft. The Giants is they have a left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
They need a right tackle.
Yes.
But they've got a very good left tackle.
That's the one thing they've got.
He's healthy.
Right. That's the one thing they've got, which is why they're probably not going to pass on Abdul Carter. But maybe they want Shedeur.
Well, maybe they could trade Thibodeau.
Yeah, the Saints and the Giants. That's a meeting of the minds.
Right. Rather than trade that third pick to some team that wants Carter, trade Thibodeau to some team that wants Carter and take Carter.
That's what I would do. Package Tibbs and then get a pick somewhere. Yeah.
All right. That does it for today's show. Again, MikeTanier.substack.com. Make sure you are reading the Too Deep 96 because player number 96 is coming
tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
player 96 comes, then the much asked for master list so people can look up a guy, which I probably should have done several weeks ago. It's done. It's finished. It'll be in the can. It's coming out tomorrow.
And we will be back with Benjamin Robinson as our guest to talk about the first round a week from tomorrow. So that is April 25th at 11 a.m. Eastern. Come back for that. For Mike Tanier, I am Aaron Schatz. So long, everybody, and we'll talk to you next week. Happy Easter and happy first day of the draft. It's almost finally here.